Mark Twain's books provide insight into the past. The events of his personal life further demonstrate his role as an eyewitness to history. Samuel Langhorne Clemens, better known by his pen name Mark Twain, was an American author, essayist, lecturer, and humorist who wrote a series of famous books, including The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Mark's first important work, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calvert County, was first published in the New York Saturday Press and became a bestseller within a short span of time. He also wrote a series of travelogues, including the best-selling The Innocents Abroad, and notable short stories such as Advice for Little Girls and The Celebrated Jumping Frogs of Calvert County, which earned him the worldwide fame and appreciation as a writer. Samuel Langhorne Clemens was born on November 30th, 1835, in Florida, Missouri. He was the sixth of 7 children of his father, John Marshall Clemens, and his mother, Jane Lambton Clemens. At the age of 4, Mark, along with his family, moved to a port town named Hannibal, located on the bank of the world's second-largest river, the Mississippi. Mark's father, John Clemens, died of pneumonia in 1847, and the family was left in financial problems. 11-year-old Mark took a job as a typesetter in 1851 to aid the family during its hard-pressed finance, and began contributing articles and humorous sketches for the Hannibal Journal, a newspaper run by his brother Orion. At the age of 18, Mark Twain left his job and became a printer in New York City. Orion and Mark traveled to the Rocky Mountains and many other places, including the Mormon community in Salt Lake City, and ending in the silver mining town of Virginia City, Nevada. Here Mark experimented with the work of mining, but failed miserably, and finally got a job at a Virginia City newspaper, the Tutorial Enterprise. In 1863, Mark wrote the first humorous account of his travels. Mark next journeyed to San Francisco, where he began to work as a journalist and lecturer. In 1867, he traveled to Europe and the Middle East and wrote a collection of travel letters in 1869, which became known as The Innocents Abroad. He wrote the notable short stories during this period, including Advice for Little Girls and The Celebrated Jumping Frogs of Calvert County. Mark Twain first met Olivia Livy Langdon in 1868. They got married in 1870. The marriage proved to be contributing towards his career, and he met many writers and socialists through his wife, who came from a wealthy but liberal family. The couple settled in Buffalo, New York, where he became an editor in the Buffalo Express. Here their first child, a son, was born, who died of diphtheria at 19 months. In 1871 they moved to Hartford, Connecticut, where Olivia gave birth to 3 daughters, Susie, Clara, and Jean. Only Clara survived into her 20s and lived to the age of 88. Mark Twain, as a writer, began with humorous and light verse, but embarked on more serious and harsh subjects in his later career. His one important work in this category was Huckleberry Finn, which combined humor and social criticism. Aside from this, he wrote several travelogues and lectures. A Tramp Abroad in 1880 was his first travelogue, and a humorous account of his travels to Germany, Italy, and the Alps. It was a sequel to his early work, Innocents Abroad, and was next followed by The Prince and the Pauper in 1882. Mark wrote his first important work, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calvert County, in 1865, which was first published in the New York Saturday Press, became a bestseller, yet many of his work was suppressed, censored, or banned in America for various reasons. In 1888, Mark Twain was awarded the Master of Art degree from Yale University. Towards the end of his life, Mark Twain traveled and lectured actively. Though he suffered from many losses in his personal life, he never lost his sense of humor and talent as a writer. Meanwhile, he had written the famous series Tom Sawyer Abroad in 1894, followed by Tom Sawyer Detective in 1896. Mark suffered from yet another emotional setback when his daughter Susie died of meningitis in 1896. Olivia's death in 1904 and Jean's death in 1909. In 1901, Yale University awarded him an honorary Doctor of Letters degree for his storybook efforts, and he received the same award from Oxford University in 1907. The same year he published two books, A Horse's Tale and A Christian Science. Now a celebrated novelist and much more admired author, he enjoyed a huge section of followers and wrote around 30 books, essays, and short stories. He was also a guest of the then American President Theodore Roosevelt at the White House. After the death of his wife and daughter Susie, Mark moved to his hometown in Redding, Connecticut in 1908. Mark Twain died of a heart attack on April 21, 1910, in Redding, Connecticut, and now rests at the Woodlawn Cemetery in Elmira, New York, where his wife and other children were buried. Mark Twain's books provide insight into the past, and the events of his personal life demonstrate his role as an eyewitness to history. He was awarded with honors from Yale University and Oxford University because of his book tellings, and now he is a celebrated novelist, and he is a much more admired author. He wrote 30 books, essays, and short stories, and most of them are still read today.